righty then, that's a wrap. Somewhere, Joseph Stalin is smiling. People, this was never about finding sufficient grounds to impeach the president. This was never a search for truth. This was never about making a legal case against the duly elected president of the United States. Impeachment was a foregone conclusion. We knew that Donald Trump would be impeached even before he was sworn in. They were talking about this in December of 2016, a month after he had been elected. They were talking about this. Remember, it was right after they tried the whole thing with getting electors, the unfaithful electors, getting electors to vote for Hillary, even though Trump had won their states. Remember that whole thing? Well, when that fell flat on its face, that's when they started talking about impeachment. 19 minutes. The most important thing you need to know about impeachment is 19 minutes. It took the Washington Post 19 minutes from the time that Donald John Trump took the oath of office until they published an article calling for his impeachment. Mark Levin called it. He called it a coup. He called it right in January of 2017. He said that a coup was underway to nullify the votes of 63 million people and impeach the president. It has never mattered whether they had any evidence. Stormy Daniels didn't work. Russia collusion didn't work. Mueller didn't work. Nothing has worked. Okay? This has all been a show trial. I feel like I've been living in Stalinist Soviet Union for the last 2 weeks. To call this a dog and pony show would be an offense to all performing dogs and ponies. Okay? This has been a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of 2 mockeries of a sham, maybe even 3 mockeries of a sham. I'm going to go Woody one better. This is 3 mockeries. Okay? It's an absolute shit show. And really, all I want for Christmas is for 47 FBI agents to kick in Schiff's door at 4:37 a.m., shining a bright light in his face and screaming at the top of their lungs and bundling him in his jammies out the door with his hands cuffed behind his back and throwing him headlong into a black SUV, while at the same time ransacking his house, removing all computers, and leaving the place looking like a bomb had hit it with a broken front door. Okay, because that, as we know, that is exactly how high-profile people are arrested. See Stone, Roger. Okay? That they concluded with a witness who partially, vaguely overheard one side of a telephone conversation in a restaurant. That was their closing witness? It just shows how obscene this entire fiasco has been. That's right, it has been obscene and it has been a fiasco. It is a quasi-legal proceeding that has been devoid of legality. Okay? Schiff is making up rules as he went along. He was making up the law as he went along. No, there is no statutory protection of anonymity, Shifty Schiff, and you know it, you liar. WAPO even gave you 3 Pinocchios for that one. It's been a disgrace. The Democrat Party has absolutely disgraced themselves. And they have proven me right on one thing. I said it off the cuff and it's become a tagline. I didn't cook it up to be divisive. I am not trying to divide. I am merely analyzing. They hate you. They hate me. They hate America. And if you think I'm kidding, if you think I'm engaging in hyperbole, if you think I'm being divisive, consider the fact that they are hell-bent on telling you, F you with your 63 million votes. You don't matter. You don't matter to them. You don't. You simply don't. And it is because they hate you, they hate me, they hate America. They hate our Constitution, they hate our fundamental fairness, they hate our Bill of Rights, they hate everything. That's all they have is hate. All they can do is tear down. They can't build up, they can't create. They see government as a way to line their and their friends' pockets. Remember Solyndra? Money laundering. Remember Burisma? Money laundering. Remember the Clinton Foundation? Money laundering. Remember all the book deals? Money laundering. Remember all those loans to all those companies that then went bankrupt? Money laundering. It's the greatest heist in history. They have literally stolen trillions, with a T, trillions of dollars from public coffers. And if you think it's only going on here in the US, you've got another think coming. The EU is just as bad as we are. Russia, Ukraine, every allegation they hurled at President Trump, that's what they did. Their efforts to subvert the 2016 election failed. And so for the last 3 years, they've been engaged in trying to subvert the will of the people prospectively in 2020.
If you get elected, will you abide by the results of the election? Will you respect the will of the people?
Said Hillary, which is when we knew that, yeah, she wouldn't. If she lost, yes, she won't. She won't abide by it, and nor have they. But you know what the good news is? Good news is people see this. Good news is that President Trump has more cash in hand than any incumbent president in history. The good news is that most of those donations have been under $250. The good news, as it was dropped last night during Dem debacle 253, I think we're up to Dem debacle 253 now. Isn't that how many debates we've had? 253, something like that. Yeah, they're $7 million in debt. The DNC is $7 million in debt. I guess that's what happens when the DNC doesn't belong to Hillary anymore and she can't put money from Russia through her foundation into the DNC anymore. Yeah, you see how that whole money laundering path works? And yet, my friend Heidi thinks that the Clintons never profited off their foundation. Are you freaking kidding me? All it was a money laundering vehicle. It's only raised 1/6 of what it raised in 2009. Why might that be? I guess they don't have any offices to sell currently. They are frauds, they are felons, and they must be stopped. Very upset to see that a date certain of December 9th for the FISA being dropped has been given. That's like telling, that's like in World War II. Hello, Adolf? Yeah. We just wanted you to know that we're going to be coming across the channel on 6th June, okay? Just wanted to let you know a couple weeks in advance. We're coming the morning of the 6th, okay? All right, you too. My best to Ava. Cheers. Seriously. It had better be a setup. It had better be, okay, we're going to go on 3, right? 1, 2. That's what it had better be. Because if this thing does not drop before impeachment articles are filed and voted on and passed, because they will be filed, they will be voted on, and they will be passed. If FISA does not drop before then, it's a completely different ballgame. FISA needs to drop so people can see exactly what's been going on. Now, there's been a lot of good news in the last 24 hours. The Parliament of Ukraine has called on President Zelensky and President Trump to investigate what was going on. Hunter Biden is named in the indictment of the arrest, the indictment against the chairman of Burisma. The Clinton Foundation has been implicated. So a lot of great things have happened, but more needs to happen, and more needs to happen more quickly. Okay, we've got to completely flip this narrative on them. We've got to make it like them walking along and they hit, the landscaping rakes, not the broad fan-shaped rakes that you rake leaves up with, but the rakes with the claw teeth that you use to, they use them on baseball diamonds during the innings to smooth out the field, and you use it to spread mulch and any landscaping chore like that. Well, if you leave a rake like that lying upright, so you got the claws, it's a pretty bad rake, but you got the claws, and then you step on it and wham. That's what we need. We need them to step on the claws of that rake and poof, hit them right in the schnoz. Because that's how you take out a bully. You hit them right in the nose. Works every time. Jim Jordan is the tallest short man in history, said Laura today. She's absolutely correct. I'm really loving this guy. Every time I see him, I love him more. Elise Stefanik, and I got to give a big hat tip to her. She has been phenomenal during these hearings. She had a defined role. The Republicans gave her a defined role, and she fulfilled that role beautifully. She was hard-nosed, and it's extremely difficult for a woman in politics to be hard-nosed and not come across as screeching. Because, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, they all come across as screeching, right? Hillary is a screecher. Elise was strong, but she was calm. She was measured. She was absolutely on point with everything she said. So kudos to Elise Stefanik. She did a great job. I do see good things coming. Okay, originally I had joked that the articles of impeachment wouldn't make it past a motion to dismiss in the Senate, but I said at the time, I was joking that's what should happen, but actually that what we need to have happen, from a legal standpoint, what should happen is that there should be a motion to dismiss for insufficiency of the complaint, legal insufficiency of the articles of impeachment. That is what should happen legally, but politically, that's not what we need to happen. What we need to have happen is exactly what Mitch McConnell is signaling will happen. There will be an extended, full impeachment trial. Because don't forget, in 1997, we didn't have a full impeachment trial. The Senate went through the motions knowing they didn't have the votes to convict, so they just went through the motions, and it was, they phoned it in. Okay? This Senate will not be phoning it in. This Senate will not only look at the charges, but will go and dig down on all the evidence and find the evidence insufficient to support the charges levied in the articles of impeachment. But that's not where the analysis will end. They're going to keep digging, and they're going to put witnesses on trial, and it will be televised, and there's no way that even the leftist media will be able to spin like they deceptively spun these show trial hearings in Hipsky. There's no way that they're going to be able to spin the Senate testimony that will be elicited, because the Republicans get to have representatives there. The Republicans are going to set the rules. So the rules will be fair, because remember, you can't complain about an unfair process in the House and then have an unfair process in the Senate. So there will be Democrat questions, but they're going to be flailing around, and it's going to be obvious that they're flailing around. Okay? The Republicans are going to be able to ask whatever questions they want without hearing, the gentleman will suspend, the witness shall not answer that question. And the president's team will get to put on the defense. Don't forget, it's not going to be like a hearing. The senators are jurors. It's the president, so the Chief Justice will preside. He'll be up in the big chair. The senators will all be on the Senate floor at their desks listening, while the House managers, so it's going to be Shifty Schiff and No Nadsler, Humpty Lumpty, and maybe Prom Queen Pelosi herself.
Hey, Chuck, listen to me. I'm up here. I'm in a sign, Chuck. Hi, Chuck. Hi. We're going to impeach him, right, Chuck? Right?
Yeah, no. But you're going to have the House managers You're going to have Justice Roberts there in the big chair. And again, he only rules on matters of procedure. And then you have the president's team. The president's finally going to have his own team to put on a defense. So this is like, they liken this phase to the grand jury phase.
That's why we can't do it in secret, because grand jury's a secret and everything's got to be a secret.
Yeah, no. It wasn't a grand jury-like proceeding, but they did ensure that the president's representatives did not have a voice at that hearing. And they did ensure that the Republicans in that hearing were muzzled, were hobbled, were limited in what questions they could ask and what responses they could elicit. Not so in the Senate. So even though, absolutely ridiculous, the Republicans today, Lise was pointing out how the procedure was flawed and completely unfair, and Shifty's there. Nope, totally fair. It was totally fair process. Totally fair. I made up all the rules I need to make up to ensure it was a totally fair process that only was fair to us. And Jim Jordan all but looked at him and called him a liar. And he's saying, nope, I never lied. I just never told the truth. I never lied. Never lied. I just told the truth. What is that BS of most of the Republicans aren't lawyers, but all the lawyers out there will know about the hearsay rule? Yeah. As I've tried to explain to people, hearsay can be accepted under very limited exceptions. There are exceptions to the hearsay rule that are specifically defined: a dying declaration, a statement against interest, etc. However, none of those exceptions applied in any of the testimony we heard in the last 2 weeks. So it still was hearsay. It still would not be admissible in a court of law. And beyond hearsay, it wasn't just hearsay. Bad enough that all of the evidence was, I heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend who overheard a conversation. If it wasn't that, it was my supposition. I assumed facts that weren't in evidence, and based on my background, because did I tell you about my background? Do you see my Ranger tab? Oh, by the way, yeah, he was a chow thief, and his peers actually tried to peer him out during the mountain phase of Ranger School. His Ranger School classmates hated him. So yeah, I will honor the fact that he was riding in a vehicle that was hit by an IED, and he does have a Purple Heart, and he does have shrapnel in his body, and that is a sacrifice. However, and that's, he had a combat infantry badge because he did serve in theater during combat. However, he was never a war fighter. Okay? His fellow Ranger classmates hated him. And not just because he was a fat little dweeb, but because he was a fat little dweeb who stole their MREs. He was a chow thief during Ranger School. And they tried to get rid of him, and the higher-ups wouldn't allow them to get rid of him because of his language proficiency. So his Ranger tab is essentially a participation award. It was not deserved. If we lived in a just world, he would have been peered out. His peers would have kicked him out of their Ranger class. I'm hearing that Rangers are exceptionally upset that he was wearing that tab. He never should have been wearing his uniform testifying. He wears a suit to work. He's got a suit in his Wikipedia page. Wearing the uniform disgraced the uniform. And rank checking Chairman Nunes, especially, he lost both ways there. He lost when he rank checked Nunes.
That's Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, please.
And then he didn't rank check the Democrat representative who called him Mr. Vindman. So he managed to lose both ways. He managed to lose by correcting and making known that he wanted to be called Lieutenant Colonel, and he lost by not demanding that he be called Lieutenant Colonel. So the guy's just a POS. It's like, he served and I didn't. He did serve in a combat zone. He was riding in a vehicle, but he wasn't a war fighter. You know, he didn't earn a Purple Heart, saving 3 of his buddies from sniper fire. In fact, what's most telling about all of his decorations, he doesn't have a Bronze Star. If you're a commander, if you are in a command position, which he was, in an active theater of war, which he was, you're traditionally given a Bronze Star for meritorious service. And that is awarded by your superiors. Vindman doesn't have one. Why not? That's a huge red flag right there. Unlike the Silver Star, which is for bravery, and remember John Kerry basically Frank Burns his Silver Star. Remember when Frank Burns put in for a Purple Heart for himself for taking shell from a shell fragment in the eye? And it turned out it was an eggshell fragment. He was in the chow line, and somebody broke an egg, and a little bit of the shell got into his eye. And so he put in for a Purple Heart because he took a shell fragment to the eye. Yeah, that's pretty much how John Kerry got his Silver Star. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the absence of an award, not a fraudulently obtained award, but in the absence of an award there. And that's a huge red flag. Why doesn't he have one? If it's pro forma to give them, why didn't he get one? Okay, so Vindman isn't the war hero that he likes to portray himself. He certainly isn't responsible for setting U.S. foreign policy in Ukraine, despite his delusions of grandeur. At the end of the day, and I said this from the start, you know, prepare yourself. The president will be impeached. There's no question about it. President Trump will be impeached. However, history will show that unlike President Clinton, who was also impeached but not convicted, this is more, Clinton actually did perjure himself. Clinton committed high crimes and misdemeanors. He was legally, properly impeached. Andrew Johnson, however, was impeached for political purposes. Donald Trump was impeached for political purposes. So that's 2 out of the 3 impeachments that we are going to have in our country that are not based on fact and on law. Okay, so it's all a disgrace. He's not going to be removed from office. I see him winning big. He's already leading all Democrats in Wisconsin. He's got more money than they have. And all the Democrats have succeeded in doing in this entire shift show is show the world that they hate you, they hate me, they hate America. Meanwhile, President Trump and the rest of us, we're going to keep America great. That's all I've got for you tonight. Until next time, God bless you. God bless these United States. Keep fighting the good fight.